What is this beast called depression? This unseen condition, a parasite of mind, body, and spirit, relentless in its wake, where nothing can quite prepare you for the pathway ahead. Depression is a maelstrom of doubt, self-judgment, sorrow, and of mental and physical fatigue, where all things once engaging and meaningful become meaningless. And in contrast to the physical self, the mind becomes excessively active, countless thoughts vying for the same limited negative space, until one's faith hangs by a single thread, a notion of past, present and future discouraging, a world beyond measure. But sometimes, levity comes at the strike of 12. As midnight fades, you feel something resembling a symmetry, perhaps even a calmness. And soon after comes the fear of sleep, of tomorrow. And when morning comes, you are once again at the mercy of the condition, anxious, nauseous, and tight around the chest, eyes resistant to an invasive ultraviolet light. Everything is impossible. Nothing can be achieved. And from there you may face solitude, or a loved one, the loving embrace of a child. But it's those mortal thoughts that keep you company. And from there you may be fortunate enough to work, to function at a basic level, seek distraction, see a compassionate friend, walk and be witness to some beauty, exchange a pleasantry with a stranger, look up at night and bear witness to the glory of Orion, and perhaps even see the illusion and solace of the imagination. All that undeniable beauty once again denied by that indifference. But when you look down, not only is the depression in you, thriving, but it's evident everywhere around you, in a city, in a society, in a civilization. So you ask yourself, what is depression in civilization? Is it the displacement of nature? Drastic industrialization, a horizon veiled with artificial light, an absence of silence, overpopulation, uncleanliness? Or is it the dehumanization of a culture and the burden of its history, recognized merely for its failures and rarely for its accomplishments? Is it a lack of faith, diverted from God, the family, community and the agency of the individual, misplaced towards the government and the pursuit of wealth, pleasure and status? Only where does it begin? Perhaps it starts with the best intentions, with progress, with growth, with leniency, with a steady increase of population and ideas, finalized with the added grace of complacency. And over time, beauty, craft and perfection is replaced with haste, inelegance and indifference, evident within crude, concrete structures, dominating the skylines, shapeless and prosaic in design. And the traditional dwellings of the land are stripped of their essence, worse, neglected, rarely to be reproduced. And below, the streets lie fractured, often replete with refuse and sometimes something much worse. And a sense of belonging is subverted, reflected in part and beyond the confines of your home. Communities have fractured. The individual becomes prevalent. Problems become internalized as our ways and traditions becomes secondary. Material gains negate spiritual worth and wisdom. Old habits don't die hard, but fade piece by piece. And unforgivingly, children have become secondary. An inconvenience of the current culture is to be believed. Men and women mistrust, demanding the world of one another. Marriage a risky proposition. The vows alone no longer sufficing. Information supersedes communication, subverting the basis of our connections as our interactions are reduced to a series of short, unlettered novelties, stoking the pretense of self-worship. And with our heads cemented downwards and our eyes constantly alight, we rarely get a vital pause for breath, for silence, as we're forever consuming, distracted, addicted, our senses saturated to the point of our depression. Or are these impressions too unfair, defeatist, misguided? As despite what may be evident beyond our very eyes, the eternal conflict of existence, suffering perhaps its greater part, is it just mostly a matter of perception, how we choose to view the world and ourselves? Is a corrupt perception indeed the disease of the individual, the seed that sows the worst aspects of human nature? Are we just a prisoner in our own minds, denying ourselves to move forward? And if so, what are the solutions? If the world is malcontent, a place only hostile or indifferent to the human condition, then we have no choice but to retreat within, enabling our isolation, enabling all those worst aspects of human nature. For example, can we forgive those sins inflicted upon us, no matter how egregious? Or do we allow ourselves to be shaped by them? Can we forgive ourselves for our sins inflicted upon others? Can an obstacle, however great or small, be undertaken? Or does it remain impenetrable? Do we see beauty or imperfection by default? Are we true and principled, modest in our determinations, self-sacrificing? Do we listen more than we care to speak, to pass judgment? Do we think ourselves more superior to another? No question, there is no greater hindrance to the individual than the self. I also believe that depression is an addiction to ourselves, to our thoughts, to our problems, to constant self-judgment, to our ego. It is an obsession with our own experiences, interpretations, and a denial to the true existence at hand. It is a view that the world does not measure beyond ourselves, and there is nothing greater or more significant than one's own importance and suffering. Depression is the loss of perspective, to afford attention to matters of inconsequence, to waste precious time. It is anger, consistent and easily expressed. Depression is the inattention to the spirit, the consumption of bad food and bad culture. It is inertia. It is being everywhere else but never present. It is a reverence to the early hours, an abundance of ideas, but seldom accomplished. Depression is the misguided view of success and denial to the precondition of failure. Depression is a blessing, an awakening, a necessary mechanism to grow. It is an uncompromising instrument to heal. A man said depression is devout, a lifting of the veil, a chance to walk with angels. an experience to transcend the mundane. A woman said depression is hell and nothing more, disabling and irredeemable. And without question, it is denial of innocence. It can be the result of tragedy, loss, sudden misfortune, the certainty of death. It is the absence of purpose, values and God, of family, of accountability, a decline in common decency, a fundamental lack of empathy. Depression is the unrealized potential that exists in all. It's a failure to act, a lack of guidance and counsel, an absence of mothers and fathers. And yet depression remains complicated, an enigma, tailor-made to the individual. It is a condition rarely conquered alone, that demands for you to reach out, not to make the assumption of what another might think, say or feel. It is restoring yourself and your relationships with others. It is the chance for consolidation and forgiveness. It is a surrendering to the process of being. It is hope. It is never capitulating. It is indeed that light at the end of the tunnel. First a pinprick, then one day, radiant. It is a sign that you are capable, more than you can ever believe, a boundless potential in waiting, a catalyst for ingenuity. And if you find yourself in the throes of the abyss, take solace, because many have endured and prevailed, where time is an ally and healer. And most importantly, depression is a state of transition, never permanent, creative as it forces the mind and body to heal. And soon you will come to realize your potential, where in time you will find peace, clarity and strength. Never underestimate yourself. And may God be with you in these times.